What if one of the most unforgettable voices in K-pop almost never made it to the stage? Not because she lacked talent, not because she didn't want it enough, but because life, for a long time, seemed determined to test her first. Before the eyeliner, before 2NE1, before fans screamed her name like it was a prayer, Park Bom was just a girl carrying something heavy inside her chest. And no, not just high notes, fear, distance, expectation, homesickness. The kind of emotional luggage that doesn't fit neatly into a suitcase, even if you're flying across the world. Park Bom was born in South Korea, but her path didn't stay there. She was sent to study abroad in the United States when she was young, a decision that looked respectable on paper and emotionally chaotic in real life. Moving overseas sounds glamorous when celebrities talk about it later in documentaries. In reality, it usually means confusion, loneliness, awkward cafeterias, and pretending you understand everything while absolutely not understanding everything. But America gave her something important, music as refuge. She listened deeply, R&B especially, big emotional voices, singers who didn't just hit notes but dragged their pain through them. That sound found her at the right time. It became more than entertainment, it became survival. And here's the first big twist in her story. Park Bom didn't simply walk into the Korean entertainment industry and get welcomed with flowers and perfect lighting. She auditioned for YG Entertainment more than once. She got rejected, again and again. Imagine having that voice and still being told, not yet. That's either tragic or proof that entertainment executives also occasionally need hearing tests. Most people would have taken the hint and chosen a safer life. Park Bom did the opposite. She kept showing up, kept trying, kept believing that eventually someone in that building would stop being wrong. And finally, someone did. When she was accepted into YG, it wasn't the beginning of a fairy tale. It was the beginning of another waiting room. Training, uncertainty, more pressure, more comparisons, more silent competition. Because being talented in K-pop is not enough. You also have to survive the machine. But Park Bom had something the machine couldn't manufacture. A voice that sounded wounded and powerful at the same time. Not polished in the cold way some companies like. Not empty. Not generic. Her tone had cracks in it, emotion in it, history in it. You didn't just hear Park Bom sing, you felt like she was telling on her own heart. And that kind of voice doesn't stay hidden forever. When she started appearing on songs before her official debut, people noticed. Even in brief features, there was that question, who is that? The kind of question that changes lives. Still, no one could predict what was coming next. Because Park Bom wasn't about to debut as a solo singer. She was about to become part of one of the most disruptive girl groups K-pop had ever seen. And when that happened, the industry didn't just get a new vocalist, it got a shock. When 2NE1 debuted in 2009, they didn't walk into K-pop. They kicked the door open wearing eyeliner, confidence, and the general energy of four women who had zero interest in asking for approval. At a time when many girl groups were still boxed into cute, graceful, or highly controlled concepts, 2NE1 came in loud, stylish, messy in the coolest possible way, charismatic, different. And Park Bom stood in the middle of that storm like the emotional center of gravity. If CL was fire and force, Bom was ache. She had this rare ability to make a hook sound glamorous and tragic at the same time. It was unfair, honestly. Some people need an orchestra and a rainstorm to sound emotional. Park Bom could sing one line and make the room feel like it had recently been through something. Songs like Fire, I Don't Care, and later Ugly didn't just perform well. They helped define an era. 2NE1 wasn't just a successful group, they were a reset button. They changed how female power looked and sounded in K-pop, and Park Bom's voice became one of the signatures people remembered most. Then came her solo breakout, You and I. Now, that song was not subtle. It was dramatic in the best way. Big emotion, big melody, big Park Bom energy. And audiences loved it. The song confirmed what fans already suspected. She wasn't just a member of a huge group. She was a star in her own right. But even during success, Park Bom often felt different from the usual idol template. She was awkward in a strangely lovable way, endearingly unpredictable. Sometimes funny without trying, sometimes so sincere that it became unintentionally hilarious. She never gave the impression of someone performing idol perfection 24 hours a day. And people connected to that. She didn't feel robotic, she felt human. Of course, in K-pop, being human is both your greatest strength and your most dangerous weakness. Because the moment the public loves you, they also begin to build an image of you. And images are fragile. Once audiences decide you are the sweet one, or the emotional one, or the lovable oddball, any disruption to that image becomes national news. Still, during the peak 2NE1 years, Park Bom was thriving. Awards, tours, chart success, huge stages. The group was dominating. Their performances carried attitude, and Bom's voice gave that attitude emotional weight. She wasn't just decoration in the group's sound, she was one of its emotional engines. But fame in the idol industry often comes with something ugly hiding just off camera. Pressure to look perfect, pressure to behave perfectly, pressure to never reveal the mess. And Park Bom, like many stars, was carrying private struggles the public didn't fully understand. The problem with hidden battles is that when they finally surface, they rarely arrive gently. For Park Bom, they would arrive with headlines. And once those headlines began, they wouldn't just threaten her image, they would threaten her existence inside the industry itself. There are scandals that fade in a week, and then there are scandals that become cages. In 2014, Park Bom became the center of a major public controversy involving a past medication issue. Reports surfaced that she had brought amphetamine-based medication into South Korea from the United States, medication that had been prescribed overseas. In the public conversation, complexity disappeared almost immediately. Context got swallowed, medical background got flattened. Sympathy got lost in noise. What remained was accusation. And once scandal enters the K-pop ecosystem, nuance usually packs its bags and leaves the country. The case ignited backlash. News outlets circled. Public criticism intensified. Every previous quirk, every past interview, every detail of her image was suddenly re-examined under a harsher light. That is one of fame's cruelest tricks. When people turn on you, they don't just dislike the present, they rewrite the past. For Park Bom, the timing was brutal. 2NE1 was still a major force, but the atmosphere around her shifted dramatically. Appearances became tense, public sentiment cooled, and what made it worse was the emotional dimension behind the issue. Discussions later pointed to mental health struggles and trauma-related reasons surrounding her medication, but at the height of the controversy, empathy wasn't exactly trending. She withdrew, not in a dramatic movie scene way, more in the heartbreaking celebrity way, less visible, less heard, less safe. The public saw a scandal, fans saw someone clearly struggling, the industry saw risk, and then came the silence. 2NE1's group momentum slowed. Eventually, after years of uncertainty and complicated internal shifts, the group disbanded. That announcement didn't just hurt fans, it altered Park Bom's trajectory completely. Because when a group like 2NE1 ends, it's not just a lineup change. It feels like a small earthquake in the timeline of K-pop. For Park Bom, the loss was layered: a damaged public image, a fractured career path, a group identity gone, and all of it happening while she was already emotionally vulnerable. This is the chapter where many celebrity stories quietly collapse. The public moves on, newer idols debut. The internet gets distracted by shinier headlines. The person at the center of the scandal slowly becomes a memory attached to a comment section. And for a while, it looked like that might happen to Park Bom. But here's the thing about voices like hers: they don't disappear neatly. Even when she was absent, people remembered the sound. That tone, that ache, that very specific emotional texture nobody else could imitate without sounding like they were trying too hard. And fans held on, not loudly at first, but steadily, because they knew something the headlines didn't. Park Bom was never just a scandal, she was an artist. And artists, when they survive silence long enough, sometimes come back with something stronger than image. They come back with truth. Comebacks in K-pop are usually easy to identify. There's a teaser, a countdown poster, a concept photo where everyone stares into the camera like they know your secrets. Park Bom's comeback felt different. It felt fragile. When she returned with new music, there wasn't just excitement. There was tension. Could she really come back? Would the public accept her again? Would people only see the scandal? Or would they hear the voice first? That uncertainty made her return emotionally heavier than a standard Idol release. And yet, when she sang again, something old instantly reappeared. That voice, still wounded, still rich, still capable of turning a melody into something more personal than pop music usually allows. Her releases after the long silence didn't feel like flashy revenge projects. They felt like someone re-entering the world carefully, carrying scars in plain sight. That was part of what made them powerful. She was no longer trying to look untouchable. She looked like someone who had survived, and survival has its own kind of charisma. She also began reappearing on television and performance stages, including moments that reminded older fans exactly why she mattered in the first place. Every appearance carried emotional weight because it wasn't just about music, it was about visibility. About being seen again not as a controversy, but as a person. Then came one of the most emotional chapters, the reunion energy surrounding 2NE1, especially their later surprise stage moments. Even brief reunions felt enormous. Not just because of nostalgia, but because they reminded people that these women hadn't simply been a successful group. They had changed the shape of K-pop. And Park Bom had been one of the reasons why. There was also something quietly moving about the way fans stayed loyal to her through all of this. In an industry that can be brutally transactional, Bom inspired a kind of protective affection. People didn't just admire her talent, they wanted her to be okay. That matters. Because sometimes the strongest comeback is not, "Look how powerful I am." Sometimes it's, "I'm still here." And that sentence for Park Bom carried years of pain, misunderstanding, absence, and persistence. Of course, not everything magically became easy. Public opinion in Korea is complicated. Industry momentum doesn't fully reset. Time changes the landscape, new generations rise, styles shift, the game moves on. But Park Bom's comeback was never really about recapturing 2010. It was about reclaiming herself. And that makes the story bigger than charts. Park Bom's story is not neat. It doesn't fit the clean arc entertainment industries prefer. There is no perfect upward climb, no uninterrupted rise, no easy narrative where talent wins quickly and the credits roll while everyone smiles attractively in soft lighting. Her story is messier than that. And because of that, it feels more real. She was rejected, she was doubted, she became iconic, she was scandalized, she disappeared, she returned. That is not just a celebrity biography, that is survival. What makes Park Bom unforgettable isn't only her role in 2NE1, though that alone would secure her place in K-pop history. It's the emotional quality she brought to music. The sense that even in the middle of a glossy pop production, something vulnerable was leaking through. Her voice never sounded empty, it sounded lived in. And maybe that's why so many people kept holding on to it, even when the industry seemed ready to move on. In K-pop, image often gets treated like everything: youth, perfection, consistency, marketability. Park Bom's career exposed how fragile that system can be, and also how limited. Because while image can be damaged, a truly distinctive voice creates memory. And memory is harder to erase than headlines. She also represents something deeper for many fans: the painful truth that idols are human long before they are symbols. They carry private struggles, they make complicated choices, they need help, context, compassion. Park Bom's most difficult years forced uncomfortable conversations around that reality. And even now, when people talk about legendary K-pop voices, her name doesn't vanish. Because influence doesn't always look like constant domination. Sometimes influence looks like endurance. The glamorous version of fame says, "Stars shine brightest when everything is perfect." Park Bom's career suggests something else. Sometimes a star becomes unforgettable because we saw it flicker, almost disappear, and still return. From a lonely girl finding comfort in R&B to one of the most emotionally recognizable voices in K-pop, to a woman forced to fight for the right to be heard again. Park Bom didn't build a clean legend, she built a human one. And maybe that's why her voice still hits so hard. Because when Park Bom sings, you're not just hearing technique, you're hearing everything she survived to get the note out at all.